to begin.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Social Primate Podcast. We got the one and only, the powerful Nathan Castellanos. What's up, man?
Oh, man, I didn't know I was powerful.
Hey,
I appreciate
that. No, the power is radiating out of you right now. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. I got my Vicodin kicking in along with some caffeine.
That's a good mix. I took something similar. I have this. I'm here. I'm gonna sound like I'm sponsoring here, but I started drinking this fucking memory and brain focus booster shit, like this thing to power me up. And I started doing also some micro doses of like some psilocybin mushroom. So I'm loaded up on that and the fucking memory focus shit. So I'm ready. But dude, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we've been planning this out for a couple of weeks. We've been having some issues at the studio here at EOTR, but for now, everything's good and back and running. But you're a writer. You're the author of Salted Plastic Tales of Gentrification.
Yeah, I know it's a long title, but I wanted it to sound like one of those old EC horror comics from the 60s, because gentrification, to me, it's a horrific thing. So I made it into this kind of Fight Club meets They Live type story. I see the They Live sticker on there, so I'm like, so he'll know who I'm talking about when I say that.
Yes. Yeah, dude, I've taken the opportunity to kind of see the stuff that you've been creating over the last, at this point, you started in 2017, right? Yeah, so 2017, you're 7 years deep into this. And at this point, you created like an anthology of the volumes that you've created, right?
I have 6 books, and then I created an anthology, and the little story behind that, it's funny. When I first started pitching these books, none of the bookstores wanted these kind of like punk rock zine style covers like I was doing. So one of them said, this doesn't look professional. So that's how I made the anthology, to show them, you know what, I'm professional. This looks like something that would be at Barnes & Noble.
Okay. So this came after you had released these books and you just decided upon at least to kind of, I guess, easier for people to get a hold of, or is this being released monthly type of thing?
I put out a new book once a year.
Once a year.
So every 4 books, I plan on doing a new anthology. So the first anthology has the first 4 books in it. And ironic, though, is now that same bookstore that turned me down wants the old school, like punk rock looking zine style ones, because now that's what's in demand. So it's funny.
Okay, man. So tell me a little bit about how you got into that aspect. I know I'm assuming before 2017, you were already involved in writing and putting stuff together in Word, right?
I always wanted to be a writer, but to be honest, I was just a reader. It's just something kind of snapped in me. Around 2016 was when I grew up in Highland Park. 2016, that's when I got priced out. I was living on Long Beach and Artesia, like borderline Compton, North Long Beach. And I was working 3 jobs. I was broke as fuck. And I'm like, it was my birthday coming up. And I'm like, you know what? I always say I want to be a writer. And everyone's always saying, just do it. And I'm like procrastinating. No, I got to go back to school. I don't have an English degree. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
And I rushed it, and I made my first book. I took a picture of the Highland Theater before I left town, and I put that on the cover, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Dude, that's crazy. Now, I know just the concept of this was, the part that tripped me out, because it was like very science fiction, was like at some point during your story, like we come to the conclusion that the people that are pushing for this gentrification is like aliens or some sort of like fucking creature, right?
Yeah, I call them 2 different things. I call them epithemedikoi, which in Greek means that they're just lustful and they just consume and that's all they want is. And then I call them barons, what basically they're like these. They look human, but they could only look human if they psychically ingest the culture of the working class that live in the neighborhoods that they take over. So they don't have any culture of their own, so they're like parasites. And I wrote this because that's how I felt when these like gentrifiers were moving into my neighborhood. I'm like, not only are you kicking me out, but you dress like you're working class. You drink Pabst Blue Ribbon. You pretend like, I hope you get what I mean. They pretend like they're poor, but they're not.
Yeah. I work in Los Feliz, so like I'm kind of like I see the culture around them. Like you come in and there's different things that they're either appropriating or they're trying to like make their own. When it's like we have a taquero down the street, but now you're selling like $10 tacos right here. And it's like what the fuck? It's a weird combination because you see like the struggle, and then you see somebody that's just trying to do it for the looks and like, hey, we sell Mexican tacos here, and it's like it's not Mexican tacos.
There's a bad story there, and that's because I mean I have friends in politics. I have friends that are artists, and I I've heard, I don't know how often this happens. I heard one time that there was a quote unquote taquero opening in Highland Park that called the police on the legit taqueros, and they're like, oh, they don't have their license, they're not sanitary, blah blah blah. What they don't know is the dude that's running this little the taquero stand doesn't have his papers. So not only did they get his business shut down, but the dude gets deported. And then at the same time, it's because out of jealousy, you want people to go to your spot with your $14 Wagyu ribeye, brown rice, artisanal organic tacos, whatever the fuck.
Yeah. It's funny because you kind of brought something up earlier off air that, when I guess the movement that we saw increase for, gentrification was that we were kind of stunned at first because we're like, oh, we're getting pretty new things. Like, things are kind of changing, making the community look better, but we didn't look at the consequences that were going to follow, which meant that the displacement or being pushed out, priced out until much later. And then we're like, fuck, now it's too late to make, stop this.
Yeah. I had my mom, my girlfriend, back in early 2000, 2008, 2012, they're like, friends, like, Nathan, we're tired of hearing you fucking talking about this. Shut the fuck up. But now that it's starting to affect everyone, they're like, oh damn, my property taxes went up. My rent went up. This new neighbor of ours, he had the nerve to come to my fence and tell me, can I stop grilling the carne asada in my backyard because he's vegan? I'm like, oh damn. Well, see, now you know.
Now you know. Yeah, exactly. Now you know. It's funny because we're seeing something, or the plans are happening right now in Southeast LA. That's where I reside, right? Like Cudahy, Bow, and Maywood, Huntington Park, HB. And we're starting to see like these shifts in, I guess, some people may call it like revitalization. Some people call it just straight up gentrification. But I think some people who are talking about it don't know exactly what's going on, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but gentrification is mostly when we have outsiders coming into the neighborhood to bring, values up to things, but they displace everybody else. While the opposite, revitalization, is the community can build itself up in a sense, right? Using resources to kind of improve itself, right?
Yeah, and be conscious about it. That's funny you bring that up because I just went to check out. I used to do open mics at a bookstore called Midnight Books in Whittier, and he just moved to a new location on Florence.
Oh yeah, right there in
Huntington Park, but they're conscious of the fact that, oh, this is a new business. Somebody might know that a lot of us grew up in LA. We want to let the community know that. We want to open up our space to let them have workshops. We want to let them know that we're not here to displace anybody. So that, to me, would be an example of revitalization. But if some quote unquote dude named Todd or whatever from like Portland moves in and he just buys like 10 properties and he has no plans on living there and he's just going to Airbnb all of them, that's like an Uber example of gentrification.
Yeah, because right now we recently got a Sprouts in Cudahy, which is, to some people they see it as a good thing. Speaking for myself, I will have to drive out to different places because, that Southeast LA area is for the most part a food desert. There's just not too many healthy options, right? So a lot of the times we would have to drive out to fucking find these supermarkets, Whole Foods in fucking Lakewood or whatever. Right, only because I was trying to take into consideration the self-conscious part of what I wanted my body to, consume. But you start seeing like, okay, now the Sprouts came in. Now there's fucking like Starbucks opening up here, and now you start seeing like these big corporations kind of start leaking into this small city that nobody for fucking decades cared about. And you're like, okay, what's going on here? And now you start hearing that they're planning to do multi-story buildings for affordable housing and all this stuff, and you're like, wait a second. Like, how far are we letting this happen, And again, everybody there's low income for the most part. So it's just a matter of time before those people start getting displaced and pushed out further out. So it's like this weird thing where I was like, fuck yeah, the Sprouts is here. But then it's like, fuck, it's going to bite us in the ass,
Yeah, there's a fine line to what you could consider and not consider, what's gentrification, what's harmful. And if you ask like 30 different people, you're not going to get the same answer. And something that's a kind of rollover from that, because, and I'm always conscious of this because I think I don't know if I told you I have a bad memory. I used to be a line cook, so I'm always looking at the price of food at grocery stores and restaurants, and it rolls over. It's not just these like so-called quote unquote gentry businesses come in. It's how they affect the other ones. Like I grew up shopping at Gonzalez, and Gonzalez used to be really affordable, but all of a sudden they opened one in Altadena after all these gentrifiers moved into Washington, and I go in there and it's modeled to be like a Whole Foods, and a pound of ranchera is like $22, and I'm like, what the hell? And I get it. It's because they have to live up to the new standard that was brought in by the Whole Foods down the street in Pasadena and all these artisanal like eateries and stuff. It seems like it's kind of like a virus effect.
Yeah, because it does, like you said, it spreads into other parts that you didn't really think about up until, you know, after you see the result of it, like the outcome, you're like, it's too late again, you know? Like one of the things for me, again, growing up in Cudahy, at some point, like in 96, 95, I was like 5 or 6 years old, but my parents used to live in Highland Park. Back then, you know, again, little kid, all I hear is like, oh, there's gang violence, there's all this stuff going on. Cool. I moved out of there, went to Southeast LA. We were there in Huntington Park for a couple years. And then growing up there, I was influenced slightly by the people around me. You know, some of the friends I had or just acquaintances were gangsters, or they were in 18th Street, Clara Street, all these gangs, right? So to me, when I started seeing like the changes in Cudahy, that I was, you know, finally able to walk my dog outside, or, you know, people were just thriving outside, I was like, all right, this is good change. You know, all the fucking gangsters are getting now, you know? But there's a cost to that progress, you know, and that cost, I mean, yes, you lose the violence and crime does in some way kind of get lower, but like you start realizing that the taxes start going up, rent starts going up. My parents at this point, they've been there for a couple of years. All the properties around them are already like in $2,000. They're still paying like $1,300 for a 2-bedroom. So it's like they were in the right place at the right time for that moment. But at this point, if they fucking bounce out of there, they're going to have to move further out, like Ontario or further out places, you know, because they can't afford it anymore. So it's like, where is this balance? Like, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah, and it feels like there's no escape. My mom is always, you know, texting me here and there, mijo, they offered to buy the house again. I'm like, Mom, don't. You pay $1,400 for a 3-bedroom mortgage, and she lives in El Monte, so she doesn't understand that they're building these 3-story like monstrosities everywhere because there's no more land to make new houses.
Yeah, and they're just trying to go up. Yeah,
they're trying to get rid of the speedway right there, the Irwindale Speedway, and build this live work loft thing that's going to be like 3 blocks long near the 605. And I think in another 5 years, people are going to be commuting all the way from Riverside.
Yeah. I used to live somewhere affordable. No, I can see it. I mean, that's where people are moving out just to buy homes and all that stuff. It's fucking ridiculously expensive to just be in the city, you know, especially own. Now, your work is influenced by these changes, right? First and foremost, by your displacement when you got priced out from Highland Park, right? Like, how has that been for you? Like that experience, like how did that build what you created now?
Well, there's a main character in the story. His name is Miguel Leon, and I gave him, you know, like a Spanish first name and a kind of like white last name because I come from a mixed race background. I'm Mexican, Jewish, white, and a lot of people don't talk about the marginalization of being mixed race in LA. I grew up never feeling like I'm here or there, and like you look at me and you listen to my voice. Oh, he's white passing. He could pass for white, but guess what? I hang around like really, really white people. And they know that I don't come from that same like class as them, but not answering your question. I took all these little scenarios that happened to me and friends, and I fictionalized them because they hurt. And I'm like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I'll do what the comedians do. You know, what are the funniest comedians? Why are they funny? Because they were poor or they went through some shit and they turned that grief into a parody. So that's how these stories got created.
And then, so the concept of your, like, tell me a little bit about the story that you're saying, because I know it's like a dark comedy, but at the same time, like this serious take on what's going on, right? Yeah.
I mean, most authors like to stick to a genre, but real life is not a genre. And to art, I believe, to mirror real life should be everything. Everything. I've got erotic scenes. I've got horror scenes. I've got funny scenes. I think where the seriousness comes in is, and then I'm basing this off the feedback I get from my readers, is when someone will send me a DM, I just read your book, and I'm laughing my ass off. I wanted to say this for so long, but I didn't have the words for it. And you created like a semantic paradigm for that. And I'm like, that hits me right here. I feel useful.
No, that's cool because it validates what you're saying too. Like you feel like this is a thought or an emotion that other people are carrying, but like you said, they have no way of expressing itself until they read somebody who's like feeling it, and you're like, oh hell yeah, this guy fucking gets it. That just makes and that it just brings another type of connection to the crowd around you. Now, when we're talking about your work, like there was this character, I think what is his fucking name? What the fuck? Gut fuck. What
is it? Gut fuck nepotist.
Yeah. So like how did you get influenced by all this, man? Because I mean, you have a very big vocabulary, I would like to say, and sometimes I'm like reading specific things, like I mentioned earlier, like sometimes I'm just like trying to still process part of it, but I know there's a fucking message there about where you're trying to, there's something that you told me, like accountability culture that you're trying to like upbring, right?
The accountability culture is a different thing. So,
okay.
I mean, I could like segue and start with what you first said, segue into that. I'm going to start with the gut fuck nepotist example. When I was going to college, I used to do catering, and I would work in the home of these gentry, and I would see time and time again like 40, 55-year-old men who are still living off their parents. So, and they all got like posh, like part-time jobs in Hollywood or entertainment, usually through their parents. So that's why all my characters that I'm disparaging or lampooning, they have last names that show what I feel they are. Like, this guy's a nepotist. His mommy and daddy got him a job in Hollywood. And as far as the accountability culture thing goes, I've noticed lately, because I'm friends with people in tenants unions. I watch who kind of gains momentum using gentrification as a branding technique, and when I look into their background and I find out, this person's a journalist, but wait a minute, they used to write articles promoting all these gentry businesses 5 years ago, but now they've like code switched and turned it into something else where they're saying they hate gentrification. I see what's going on here. They know this is a hot issue and they're going to use it to rebrand what they're doing. They don't really care. And what I mean by accountability culture is and I'm just going to say it, I don't feel they should be able to do that. You shouldn't be able to be a politician, I'm not going to say any names here, that is doing all these new developments, and then when you want to get reelected to get that vote, you start talking about how you hate gentrification when you've been promoting it for 10 years. Like there's no accountability there. That's what I mean by accountability culture, that if you want to come out and be like, hey, I hate gentrification, and you want to join a tenants union or an activist circle, you should be vetted. Your background should be looked
history.
To see if you've been consistently legit with that this whole time, or you're just jumping on the bandwagon because it's popular.
Now, is there, from your opinion, is there a world where, I mean, because in general, we know that, as humans, we can evolve based on our experiences and our perspectives change. Now, is there a reality where that can be related to somebody in this position?
Totally. And I reflect that even in my work. In my work, the character Miguel, he starts out as this hateful drug addict who just hates every gentry he meets, but by the third or fourth book, he's like in this like sex magic orgy threesome with these two gentry girls, and I mean, as much as that's like some entertaining erotica, my point is that these two people are teaching him that he can't judge everyone. But when I find it suspect though in real life is when somebody changes at the opportune moment, like right when gentrification started to become villainized, the last like post-COVID, and then all of a sudden a lot of people who formerly didn't care start caring. And I'm not saying they all don't care, but it just seems a little suspect.
No, I'm definitely not opposed to name dropping on some of them. No, this is more like when I'm like like, hey, fuck this guy now. But if you can name drop, by all means, go for it. Like, it's fair because these are people who are in the public eye. You know, it's.
Well, I thought about it, but then I remembered what I learned in business law when I did my pre-law, and I'm like, wait a minute, if somebody really wanted to, if they could sue me. So I'm like, I have that kind of mind, so I'm not going to name drop, not just out of respect for your show, but because I want to protect myself legally.
If you're listening and you feel that guilt in you, we're talking about you. So you fucking know.
They know who they are.
No, and it's an interesting thing again, because for a lot of the times, again, speaking from my example, there was a point in my life where I was like, gentrification is not bad. Like, it's good. We're getting new things. The crime's going to that whole fucking single issue on that. But you start fucking seeing again that this is just a big game where people are jumping in at the right opportunities, kind of like we see in every fucking political, opportunity. And you start seeing like, okay, this guy's a bullshitter. This guy is straight fucking just flip-flopping. And then when you start seeing that, then you can start seeing the true colors of those individuals. But then it becomes important to highlight or to find the people who really are about it and kind of bring them up, And I think that's the harder part, because a lot of the times those people don't want to be in the spotlight. People who are looking to actually drive some change. They're like, nah, I don't want to do this,
Or they're like me, where they don't want a coalition with anybody because we're too sketchy and too afraid of everyone. Like I wrote a little kind of manifesto last year where I called it "This Is Why We Lose," where a lot of people that are against gentrification, they don't want to work together because they'll be like, well, only my way works because I'm into politics. Well, no, fuck you. Only my way works because I'm an activist. No. You got to use art. No. I grew up in Boyle Heights, but you grew up in Northeast LA, so fuck you. And like if everybody from everywhere with each unique tool they had to offer work together, we'd get so much more done. That's the way I see it. Yeah. But again, like you said, it has to be the people that are there for the right reasons, no ulterior motive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it should be understandable too that, again, because we're human, we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna fucking say some bullshit sometimes, but it's the actions that you do throughout the time that are really gonna define what you're doing. So like for this example, like you mentioned a few people that we're not gonna specifically name, but I've seen their campaigns again. It's a fucking, when was elections, like Super Tuesday was a month ago or something, something like that. And everybody was driving like, gentrification, let's not push for this, let's push for resources for the community. And it's like, okay, cool. But when this is done and over, are you still going to fucking push for this, And if you do, then it's not going to be within a specific time frame that's going to provide solutions, in a timely manner. It's going to fucking take forever till you just see these pushes. And even then somebody else will come in with a different point of view and things just get pushed off,
I'm going to answer this based off my own beliefs. I hate to say it, but I'm very apolitical, and a lot of my friends like to make fun of me. They call me an anarchist. I'm like, I'm not an anarchist. I'm on a spiritual path. And I think that culture is what dictates politics and legislation. That there's one of my favorite writers. Her name is Centra Wilson. She's like a fashionista and like a social analyst. And she says culture is the gun. And what she's saying by that is that culture is what dictates politics. So I believe politicians could do what we want them to do, but they're going to have to be motivated by the demands of the prevailing culture, whether it's pop culture or family values or just, it could be anything. You see how much movements like BLM and Me Too changed everybody, even if a lot of people involved weren't always 100% in it for the right reasons. It changed society. What I believe that if hating gentrification, and I know this makes me sound like a hypocrite because there's people I just said I don't want people involved that are in it for the wrong reason, but I believe if it became a pop cultural thing, like t-shirts, docudramas, TV shows, we already have like Gentrified and a couple of them, that it would feed things. I'm rambling, but my point is that I feel that it's the culture that needs to change before the politics changes. And I've already seen what each council member is capable of, no matter what they say, where I grew up, and they never deliver.
Yeah, no, I see that. I mean, again, because I'm from Cudahy, there's been years of talks of like, we're going to create new spaces, community spaces. But, there's never that progress. We never see it. Exactly. The neighborhood city or the neighboring city, Bell, that place is like, has resources, but everybody's just fucking wrapped up in embezzlements and like all this corruption. When it's like, you have the ability to help your community and you're just fucking doing some dumb shit.
That's exactly what my girlfriend was saying yesterday when we were driving down Florence, because she grew up in Bell, she grew up in Downey, she grew up in Southgate. Yeah. She's like, this area, she didn't really get into it. She's like, it's corrupt as fuck.
Yeah, no, it's bad, man, and it's fucking sad because, again, you mentioned about like the culture. Like it's depends on the culture that's being created right now. I feel, because maybe I'm just being biased because I'm from the area, but it feels like there's finally like this movement of trying to bring up people who really do have those values set in mind. You know, like we're bringing those people up. That's what it feels like, at least. Now, I have been in circles where, you know, they're involved with maybe superintendents for the city and all this stuff, and I always feel the type of way because I'm not really necessarily about that kind of thing. I'm more about like, you know, I guess the anarchist thing. Like, you know, I want to fucking talk about the counter thing, and it puts me in like position where I'm like, okay, do I want to support this thing because they're just giving me a spot here, or do I want to just fucking continue having these conversations where we can put what they're talking about on the spot? So it's like this fucking balance that you kind of have to figure out, you know. But Sela for sure has been corrupted for years, and I think it's just a matter of time before, you know, we're able to have that political strength and power to be like, hey, let's fucking shift things over so we can revitalize what we know rather than have it gentrified.
I'm going to say two things. I to kind of like my litmus test for what's up for the future and how people feel about politics, because I'm already on my way to becoming an old man. I'm in my early 40s. Is I talk to the Gen Zers. And one of them told me something the other day. I was in Boyle Heights doing an open mic, and he said, you know what? A lot of us Gen Zers, we don't have any faith in politics anymore. We're ready to bring back the guillotine. And I started laughing, and I'm like, and he's, no, I'm serious. Yeah. And then another thing I want to bring up is you look at how much the Justice 8 were able to accomplish in a few years as opposed to what these politicians were able to accomplish in a generation. And then that makes me think, oh, that's why they put them in jail, because they're dangerous and they're actually doing something.
Yeah. No, that's the exact thing. Somebody told me recently, like, if there's two things that these systems look into if they want to bring you down, is if like you can have the intent but not the capability, you're not a threat. But if you have intent and capability, then they perceive you as a threat and they're going to fucking take you down. And it's like in this case, you know, you brought up Justice 8. They had both the intent to, you know, stand up for these people, and they had the capability because they were able to bring people together and say, hey, we're going to fucking show up at this guy's house. We're going to demand that this guy is accountable for what he fucking did. And that's, again, intent and capability put them in that position where they're just in a bullseye and they got fucking taken in. You know, and that's where you're like, fuck, like, no matter what you do, it feels like you're being watched regardless, right? And one way or another, they're going to try to put you down. But I like to think in the positive light that even if this happened to them, you know, everybody outside of Jaguar is still currently in that situation. But if anything, I like to think that it just reinforced the idea of fucking standing up for ourselves, you know, to kind of, I don't know, bring ourselves together as a community. I like to think that way. I don't know if that's the exact fucking interpretation of everybody else, but I like to hope that their actions, where they're at right now, is just only going to solidify our power to fucking stop it, you know? But yeah,
I hope so, you know. But I'm also thinking that this is a taste of what's to come, because the bubble's about to burst. These politicians aren't just trying to get the votes by pandering to hating gentrification. They're trying to kind of like pet the fever, get people to stop being so angry about gentrification, give them a little bone. I really hope, you know, and I've been told this by friends in politics that it might be on the menu in the future that talking shit against gentrification becomes a situation where if you do that, you're considered to be doing subversive terrorist activity. And I really hope that doesn't become a part of local legislation. But I think what happened to the Justice 8 is like a little taste of how that could be a very real possibility.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that to me was like kind of scary, because, you know, I'm not saying I come in here and have fucking conversations that are like fucking about deep state and all this shit, but it's still conversations that if a lot of people listen to, maybe I think they can be influenced to do something about, take action, you know. I think that's what I fucking hope. And maybe potentially at one way or another that puts me as a fucking target, like, hey, social primate, he's in the fucking red lines because he's having these conversations. And, you know, again, if I don't have intent and capability, but we're having a conversation, how dangerous can that eventually be?
Mm-hmm. It's you know, I think it's just as simple as how big your platform grows. Once it grows and grows, it's like, what happens? Let's say, for instance, if I became a bestseller, am I going to end up dead in the LA River? Like, you know, that's far fetched, but you know, it's like, when you think about it, if you inspire people to, everyone already has that emotion deep in them. I'm fed up with this. I go back to the example that I made earlier, how people send me these DMs. Oh, you put into language for me. And I like to study all these like different spiritualities, and in Buddhism and Hinduism, they always say that to manifest into reality, it starts with an emotion, then a thought, then the work of your hands. If I inspire this person, which I'm going to just say it flat out, the main intent of my book is not to become a millionaire. It's to get other people who have artistic capability to realize they could use that creativity to take their grievance and do something with it, you know. And I've had people, you know, create anti-gentrification music. I have a friend who does hip hop now. All his lyrics are anti-gentrification oriented. My point is, if I inspired everybody to theoretically use art to fight the problem, and then it becomes that culture that dictates the politics, then I am kind of a dangerous person.
Yeah, exactly. That what you said, or ending up in the river dead, or in the riverbed dead. Oh, that's dark, man.
I'm just joking.
No, of course, but I have a very visual memory, or like a mind, so I'm just like, damn, that's fucking hardcore. But now, how you got started at this? I know you mentioned earlier, 2017 when you started writing. You've always kind of wanted to be a writer. Like, what was the inclination for you to delve into all these other like topics and subjects? I know you right now, you say you're pretty well read in different things. Like, what drove that curiosity for you?
I got in trouble when I was 16. I went to juvie up until I was 18, and there was nothing to do in there but read. And I have an older brother who I didn't want to end up at, because he's been in and out of prison for almost 30 years now. So I'm like, I'm going to culture myself so that way I don't come back here. This is the first and only time, and it just snowballed. It went from novels to anthropology to religion to psychology. I have a very serious spinal problem with my health, so instead of getting surgery, I started delving into Eastern medicine, studying martial arts, yoga, meditation, and remind me of what your question was.
Oh yeah, just like how you got in, because I mean you're very well read, you know, and like it's just, you know, I see you and I'm just like, fuck, you're information packed, you know, and like I see myself and I'm like, I just want to know more, you know, because I'm not in that level, you know.
Well, I mean, I didn't go to college. I always wanted to. I wanted to become an English teacher, and when I got out of juvie, and you know, I would go to these parties and I would like get kind of like stumped when I would meet these college people and we'd argue, and that hurt my pride and my ego. I'm like, I don't want this guy with too much privilege to make me feel like I'm a dumbass. So I started reading, and then eventually I started winning the arguments. And you know, at my age now, I think it's petty to argue. I'm good at it. I like to do it, but I admit that it's petty. And I've been collecting books for over 20 years. I've got almost a 3,000 book library. So that's where the overbearing like language comes from, and the way I talk, the way I think. I got too much going on up here. I mean, I told you earlier that I just started studying Santeria, and my teacher, he's like, you need to chill. And the same thing when I was at the Buddhist temple when I was younger, you need to chill. I think too much, and it gets in the way of me realizing that I need to communicate in a more universal way. So I appreciate the praise. They tell me all about how I talk, but I'm aware that it gets in my way of being relatable.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it. But I mean, if you put it another way too, I mean, it just goes to show that I should probably pick up more books more often. And I think that goes for a lot of other people, because, you know, when you really take a look at that, how many people, at least that I know, pick up a book every fucking day or weekly or monthly to finish something, you know? Very, very rarely. So it's like, maybe that speaks to something else, that we should improve on certain things, get knowledge from somewhere else, like not just go based off the wisdom, air quotes, wisdom that other people are just throwing at you, rather just take it into yourself to fucking teach yourself, educate yourself. Hence why I want to have this conversation with, somebody that has fucking written about it for so long, and somebody who's just fucking walking into this thing like, dude, I want to know what's going on, because I'm not informed, and I feel like I should be informed because these other communities are being affected right now. So that's where I'm like, we need to educate ourselves a little bit more. This is just one of those conversations that I feel like I walk out of here learning a lot more or knowing a lot more.
Yeah, I think the best way, and you're going to get a different story from each person, is to talk to the people that have gone through it. If you were to join like a tenants union and you talk to like the señoras there, they're going to have better stories than I have, to be honest. You talk to someone that's lived in their neighborhood like me, instead of 30 years for 70 years, you're going to get a better story. What I'm trying to get at is that I want to put myself in a more humble light, is that I do read a lot of books, but the best perspective you're going to get on these things is when you talk to the people that have suffered it. And that's the way I'm always putting these like antagonistic things in my stories on my social media, how I don't like when gentry come in and they want to tone police the people that have gone through it, because I feel like you might be well educated, sir or madam, whatever, but you haven't gone through it. So no matter how you could frame it, and you have all this book knowledge, this legal knowledge, these statistics, you have not gone through it. Let the people tell their story.
Yeah, I'm 100% for that, because somebody actually told me that, Jack from Justice 8, he had told me, like, like sometimes you can read a book and only get so much information, but unless you're feet on the ground with the people in the area who grew up, who know this area, you're going to get like this diluted version of what it was. I was like, it's true. It's good to open yourself to meet new people. And one of those things that you do constantly too is like open mics. And like you say, you're involved with you have relationships with people in specific groups. So that just continues to broaden your information, and that's fucking dope, because again, sometimes we keep our circle small. All I know is like, I know this guy just does some regular social work or whatever, but it's like, open up your relationships, and that's going to make a big, broader difference in your fucking perspective. Your books right now, you said you have a total of 7?
6, and I'm working on 7, because 6, and then the anthology, which has the first 4 in there.
Oh, okay. So where do you see that story? Is that like you're going to continue that, or is that like just like where do you see yourself going with the next couple of?
I hope to continue it till the day I die, and then just kind of like mutate it, grow it into something else. Like the tone changes. Like like I said, the main character Miguel in the beginning, he's just playing PlayStation, angry that he finds out his girlfriend is this monstrous inhuman thing that's cheating on him, popping Vicodin, and then by the 6th book, he's learning sex magic and yoga techniques and learning that he could manifest the God within. And people probably read this and like, what the fuck does this have to do with gentrification? And I'm like, everything, because if you get to know yourself, you know your faults and you edit them and you become a better person, and you're better to your people in your community. And I'm all about that. And maybe I sound like I'm crazy, and that's fine. It's fine, because I'm very big on spirituality, because it saved my life. It's kept me from the surgeon's blade. It's kept me, I couldn't walk for almost 6 months a few years ago, but because I know all these crazy meditation techniques, I was able to walk again and rebuild myself.
Dude, that's powerful and beautiful, man. Because again, that's hard. You think it's sometimes like something happens to your body, like you're limited only to the medical science that you go with to the doctor and stuff, but you take into consideration all these other aspects of the East. What did you say? Like Eastern medicine?
Oh, anything. I mean, Eastern medicine, ancient, like indigenous medicine. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I first couldn't walk, like in my mid-20s, the doctor's like, okay, surgery immediately. I'm like, fuck that. And my cousin's like, no. My prima, she is a curandera, and I went to her, and she like, I don't know what it was, I don't know what to call it, but she got her fingers, and it felt like I don't know if you're old enough to remember the car lighters that used to be in cars.
Yeah.
But it felt like she was getting those and putting them out on my skin. Like that's how hot the edge of her fingers are. But then when I walked out of there, I was walking. My waist was straight. And that opened up my eyes to the fact that there are things out there, ways to heal yourself that aren't in the hospital, that these doctors don't know about.
Yeah, that's what grinds my gears. Sometimes like, you see certain things that are like, this is not measured by the FDA. It's like, this is not for men. It's like, fuck you, you know?
It works. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like one thing that I recently saw that was I thought was kind of fucked up was that, so I guess LA County has this program where they're trying to use AI or something to detect people's history, how prone they are to become homeless. And I was like, that sounds a little discriminatory. Like, what information are you taking to fucking calculate this? And I was like, dude, so basically the goal of this program is to detect who's going to be going homeless and reach out to them to provide resources so they don't become homeless. So I'm just like, fuck, this sounds like some Minority Report shit where you're like doing all this intrusive stuff to gather information to detect who might be in it, but you're still targeting low-income communities. It's like, you're not solving the homeless problem. You're just trying to stop it. But it's like, you already have a homeless problem. What the fuck? It's like putting water in your boat and your fucking boat has a hole. It's like, you're not fixing anything. So I was like, yeah, like they're investing all this money into these technologies that are supposed to help us. But all they're really doing is just giving this money to like a startup to see if they're going to be able to create a solution for it rather than spending the money on a problem that's already there. So it's like, what the fuck?
I feel like that goes back to accountability culture, knowing why somebody's gathering that data, what they're going to do with it, who are they selling it to, what's their real motive. Like last week, I met these quote unquote activists that came to Highland Park, and they're going to every community in LA, and I'm not going to say any names, and they say, oh, we have grant money for anyone that's an artist that wants to fight gentrification. And I went to meet them. I had no intention of taking the money. They thought that's why I came to meet them. But what I wanted to know is who's the foundation and who's giving the money. You know, who is the money behind the money? And they didn't want to give it up.
Oh,
they didn't want to give it up. So I asked some friends. They did some digging. I find out that they have like these big like corporate like entities in there, and they just want to get into any community in LA where gentrification has already run its course, so they could do so-called philanthropy work. But it's really just a way to prove that they're using that grant money the way they're supposed to, so that way when they apply for the next year, they can, I did the work. Well, what work? You came into a community where gentrification has already leveled everything. There's nothing to preserve. I even told them, well, why don't you go to Long Beach or San Pedro or somewhere where you could still do some good? They're like, no, we came to take a look at the murals here. I'm like, well, that's good and well, but that's not going to reverse engineer the the price of rent.
Yeah, told them?
Yeah. Oh, I told them in the most polite way possible, but it's like they kind of understood by osmosis what was going on here, that I knew what they're really trying to do. So they cut me off. All of a sudden, there was no funding. I'm like, but wait a minute, you said in this message yesterday that there's funding. Well, that must have been a miscommunication. I'm like, what miscommunication? I have the message right here. And now you're saying that there is no money. So what's really going on is, you know, that I'm astute. I know about grants because I used to write grant proposals. I know the law, and I'm not some dumbass you could just take advantage of. So you're shutting down everything and telling me nothing.
See, that's what pisses me off. That's what pisses me off. Like, are we not doing the work as the recipients of like these so-called grants, like to figure out where this money's coming from? Or are we just being sold on the fact that, oh, free money, somebody's going to give you money? Like, let's fucking take it. Like, we're not doing our due diligence to also on our part to fucking figure this out. You, at least on your part, you're putting them on the spot in a sense. But somebody like me, I would have been like, oh yeah, let me apply, sure. But again, it's because we're sold on this idea of like something brighter and shinier, and for us that we're not used to these bright and shiny things, we're all like, yes, let's take it. It's fucking beautiful. But it's going to come at a cost of something, one day or another, it's going to catch up to us. And that's what bothers me. That like, why are we not, or what's stopping us from educating ourselves? So like, is it self-imposed? Is it something that's just being built in the system that's not allowing us to fucking explore these mindsets? Like what,
I can only speak for myself, and I'm gonna make us, I'll give you a little bit of my personal history. As far as money goes, I'm not gonna lie, I'm poor. Ever since I had this injury with my spine, well, I've had this problem for almost 15 years, but it hit a wall 2 years ago. I needed money, but if I take that money from them, and then someone I work with finds out, they're gonna be, oh, you're one of these vendidos they talk shit about, but going back to my personal history, my father is like this like bust your ass working class guy who, he's able to generate a lot of money, but he comes from this Protestant like background where I give nothing to my kids. I give nothing to anybody. But my mother, she was born and raised in Jalisco, and she came here like in her teen years. And I see a lot more love and giving nature and fulfillment in her personality than I see in his. So I'm not saying money's not important. I'm just saying that when you're in a situation where you have to go against your principles to get it, think about what's going to happen there. It's my father wanted to live his life a certain way, but he wanted to please his father, because this is kind of like a white Protestant mentality. But in my mom, as opposed to she wanted to live for love, and she's a lot more happy. And go with your gut. If you can afford to go with your gut. Now, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, no, I get that. Again, I don't want to put blame on anybody who fucking does it. I know everybody's situation is different. They may be fucking bankrupt or whatever it is, so no blame to that. But it's also, I don't know, healthier and greater. It's great. It's for the greater whole to just keep those principles, but yeah, man, it's one of those things, dude. It's weird. I wish I was more educated on that kind of stuff. And because of this, right, like, again, it's because I'm having these conversations that I reflect on myself, like, okay, where can I clean up or better myself to educate myself, and at least have some sort of call to action, whether it's reading more, whether it's just, having these conversations further out in the future. And like, it's still, us having this conversation is still allowing me to like, okay, I got to do something, and I feel like that's, again, what people get from your books, and the stuff that the feedback you received as well. Like, hey, you've put this message out, I've internalized it, and now I feel this type of way. You voice my expressions, my opinions. Now let me take a call to action for this. And, I think that's all we can really do. Just fucking motivate people to do shit.
Yeah, and humble ourselves. Like I'm trying. I keep realizing I'm going to keep going back to it over and over again. I got to learn how to speak a different way, or I'm just going to be known as this angry dude. And I've heard this from a lot of the people that run the open mics. Like, I'll come there and I'll read and I'll talk, and they're like, "Oh, you're kind of like a charming guy." I'm like, "What do you mean? What did you think I was going to be?" Like, they're like, "We thought you're going to be this fucking angry bastard based off your books." Because
people.
One of the guys that runs open mics, he's like, well, when you read your book and you look at your hard-hitting language, you would assume you're just a very hateful dude. I'm like, well, and I explained to him, I'm like, well, the reason why I do that is because gentrification is violence.
Yeah.
And it does make you feel a certain way. So to kind of let go of it, sometimes you got to use this vengeful language, but that doesn't mean that's who I am 24 hours a day, because you're going to kill yourself if you're full of hate all the time.
Yeah, this is going to take a toll on every part of yourself. Nah, man. Well, Nathan, it's fucking a sick ass conversation, man. Thank you for making the time to just come out and have a conversation about your books and just your work. And honestly, again, whenever I see your stuff on Instagram, it definitely makes you feel something, and at the same time, it makes you question, because you want to figure out exactly what you're talking about. And I think for anybody paying attention, it's enough to get them curious to figure out, like, okay, let me see what's going on with my community. For example, like I said, again, Cudahy is my place. Whenever I do see some, like, I wouldn't say injustices, but like these inconsistent approaches to the people who are trying to, represent where we're coming from, it's like, nah, we gotta make sure we uplift the people who are really been putting the fucking work for so long. But yeah, man, where can people find out your work, your past books, and any new stuff that you're gonna be?
Oh, you just check out my Insta. It's I don't even know my own Insta. It is at IG saltedplastic _LA_author, right? Yeah, and there's a link right there. Plus, you could always send me a message. I like talking people's ears off. Like my girlfriend, I've been with her. She has her jewelry business where she makes like preserved blood and bone and spiderweb jewelry, and that's how I got into the open mics. And people will ask me about my books, and I'll talk their ear off, and then I'll go into a conversation that snowballs into, you know, voodoo or Brazilian magic or whatever. And my point is, if you want to know where to get my books or you want to know my ideas, DM me. I'll give you an earful.
No, I love all these influences that just fucking you bring together in your work. That's honestly, that's one of the most like fascinating things about it, because even the covers, like the fucking artwork, I'm just like trippy concepts, you know?
Oh yeah, I got a chaos magic sigil on there and the old picture of City Hall. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a guy with two girls on there because he, you know, the main character Miguel, he's in this love triangle with this girl and her girlfriend. So it's I'm not gonna get into the reasons why, but everything's based off of my life. You know, it's either something that happened to me or something that happened to someone I know or something that happened mutual to us. You know, everything in my book, it comes from something.
And then people can find the individual books and the anthology like in local bookstores for the most part, right?
Oh yeah, there's let me see. You know, I told my memory's bad, so I'm going to try to list them all. There's Stories in Echo Park, Pop and North Figueroa Books in Highland Park, Page Against the Machine in Long Beach, Read Books in Eagle Rock, the Libros in Lincoln Heights.
Oh, sick! I know that spot for sure.
And man, I know I'm forgetting one right now, but again, you could always DM me if you want to know where. Oh, and Skylight Books in Los Feliz.
Oh, fuck, that's down the street from where I work. Oh, sick. Okay, I might have to stop by and pick one of those up, man.
I might have to restock, but if you go in there and you ask them, then that'll help me. Like, it's in demand.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to ask for the individual ones with you said like the punk ones?
Oh, yeah. And I've been trying to get into Wacko Around the Corner for years, and I don't know what it is. Like, they don't like my message there. I'm like, dude, I grew up coming here. You're a crazy weirdo shop. Why don't you want to stock my books?
No, I am definitely interesting, man. I thank you for making the conversation happen. And if anything, I have more questions, but we'll save that for the next conversation we have. And everybody else, we'll catch you next week. Peace out.